welcome back to my channel. It's Jordan here. Welcome to day 2 of Bookmas. We're going to be talking about my 24 favorite books of 2024. And I had so many books that I loved during 2024. So I read at least 44 books. I'm going to say that because I don't know how many books I reread. I didn't put that in Goodreads, so I'm not sure how many books I reread, but at least 44. I set my goal at 80 just because I had read a lot the year before that. So I had read a lot of books around 70 something or 80. Because I was always on my computer reading during class. Not that that's a bad thing. We love reading, but just not during class. So this year I've locked in. It's my junior year. I have to lock in. So I haven't been reading as much. But that being said, these are my top 24 of 2024. I'm going to go in order of author. These are in no particular order necessarily of which one is my favorites overall. But I do have one book that is my favorite. And so we're going to start with Abby Jimenez because she's one of my favorite authors ever. I love the way she writes. My favorite book this year was Yours Truly. I absolutely loved it. I ate it up. I devoured it because I love the way that she wrote. I love the way that she incorporated anxiety and romance somehow to make this perfect rom-com with just enough heaviness in it that didn't make me feel necessarily awful about the whole book, but it made me feel bad for Jacob and what he was going through. I just love the book so much. That was my favorite book, hands down, this year. The other book that I read by her that's in my top 24 is Just for the Summer. I love Just for the Summer. I loved Emma. I loved Justin. I understood them so well. I thought it was so funny. The book was just so funny because the concept of it is actually hilarious, just the way that they met. And even, she was so crazy to go to Minnesota. I think it was Minnesota. Yeah, Minnesota. For the summer, just for this random guy she's never really met before, just so that they can try to see if they're compatible or not. That's funny to me. Not that it's something that doesn't happen, but it's just funny to me that that's the basis of the whole story. I loved Justin, I loved Emma. What was Emma's best friend's name? Maddie. So Maddie was one of my favorite characters too. I loved her friendship with Emma. I loved the way she didn't give up on Emma and she forced Emma to tell her things because she knew that Emma needed it. She was the epitome of a best friend and what a best friend should do. I loved her character so much and I hope she gets her own story one day because it was actually awesome. The next author is Miss Sarah Adams. I love Sarah Adams, guys. I don't annotate books, right? I've annotated very few. The cheat sheet, all annotated. I loved the cheat sheet so much. If you guys don't know, that was probably, it was a 5-star read for me. I loved the cheat sheet so much. Best Friends to Lovers, it's amazing. It's awesome. It's a sports romance. It's everything. It's closed door too, which is great. And then the rule book, they're kind of interconnected standalone. But this one was about Bree and Nathan. They've been best friends forever. She basically has been in love with him and he's been in love with her for their whole lives. But they've never really told each other that. So it's been hard because Bree has been so attracted to Nathan, but she doesn't really know what to do with it. Whereas Nathan's just ready to take the next step and she's not. So this book was awesome. It was amazing, and it portrays anxiety really well. The Rule Book was also another really good book by Sarah Adams. Not quite as good as the cheat sheet, but this one was good too. Next is Miss Jennifer Lynn Barnes. Look at all these books that made it onto my top 24. The first book, 4.5 out of 5. Okay, great book, loved it. Set up the whole series so well. Got me intrigued. Second book, flopped. I put it on the list because it's part of the Inheritance game series, but I did not like this book. Probably a 3 out of 5. 4.5 out of 5. Loved this book. Oh my goodness, guys. The Brothers Hawthorne was interesting. I don't remember a ton of what happened, but I do remember really liking it at the time. So probably 3.75. Guys, this book was so good. This was the perfect book to wrap up Jameson and Avery's story. Perfect. It is a collection of novellas basically about the Hawthorne family. Hannah and Toby's story, I actually cried. This is probably a 4.75 if not a 5-star book. I know a lot of people are not going to feel the same way, but I loved this book so much. You don't understand, I loved it. I think it's safe to say that all these books should be in the top 24. I loved this series. I'm so sad I have to say goodbye to them, but I don't because the Grandest Game series is still coming out. The Grandest Game. I loved this book so much, guys. You don't understand, I love this book because the story of Lyra and Grayson was so good. I didn't connect to the other characters as much. I didn't connect to Gigi and I didn't connect to Rowan. But I did love Lyra and Grayson just because I have all of Grayson's backstory and I loved it. I'll admit I skipped some chapters of like Rowan and Gigi just because it was like so not connecting in my brain. But I love Lyra and I love her story so much. And I really connected to her and Grayson's story. I am rooting for them all the way. So yeah, this is like a 4.5 star book too, I would say. Maybe a 4 star. 4 star. Great book. So the next books are the Cruel Prince trilogy by Holly Black. I loved this series so much. I loved Cardan, I loved Jude, I especially loved the last book. So basically Jude is a human growing up in this fantasy world and she and Cardan are enemies. And it's just the most awesome enemies to lovers YA trilogy ever in a fantasy world. I love it so much. This is probably my favorite fantasy series besides Powerless. But I loved this series so much. They're all, I think, like 4 stars or above, all of the books. I just love them so much. And I would definitely do a reread. So I am so, I don't know, I was just blown away when I read these books. Her writing style is so easy to read. She explains things so well, especially since it's YA. It's written so well, and it's a fantasy. So it's hard to explain well, but she does. Next is Catherine Center. So, of course, Hello Stranger and The Bodyguard. These are the only 2 books that I've read by Catherine Center, but I absolutely loved them. I read this one in the beach in Aruba. It was awesome. I loved the plot twist in this book. I was actually so shocked. Like, I was so shocked. Call me stupid, but I was so shocked. I love Sadie. I cannot empathize with facial blindness. I've never had it, but it was really great the way that she portrayed it. I'd never really known what it was before. I think the way that she portrays things is so easily understood, and she's just a really good author. I love the way she writes. It's very digestible, and this book was kind of fairly long. Not really. It was like 300 pages-ish, but I loved it. It was amazing, and the cover's so pretty. Loved it. Next is The Bodyguard. I loved this book because, I don't know, it was honestly one of the first books. It was this one and the cheat sheet that I got around the same time that kind of like solidified I want to get back into reading. So this one is just really fast-paced. The plot twist in this is crazy too. So basically it's about Hannah, who's a bodyguard, and Jack, who's an actor, and it's just like fake dating. It's awesome. It's friends to lovers. I absolutely love it, and the found family in this is really good. This one is A Thousand White Kisses by Tilly Cole. If you don't understand why I like this book, I don't think that you have read the book, because it's heart-wrenching. It's so sad. I cried so much, but it's so beautiful. The way the story is written, it's so beautiful. There isn't a plot. I'm gonna just be honest, there really isn't a plot. Okay, I'm sorry if it's rude to say there's no plot. The plot is just very not story-like. It's actually told like it's the life of a girl, which makes it more real. That's why I love this book. This book is so sad. It will tear your heart and it will not mend it. It will not. I'm gonna tell you that right now. But it's not depressing. It's a really beautiful story, and if you haven't read it, definitely read it. This is definitely like 4.5 stars, really up there. Loved this book so much. I loved The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. I don't care what people say. I loved this book so much. I just fell in love with the writing, and honestly, this is the first ever classic book that I've loved so much, and you should definitely read it. 5 stars. Definitely 5 stars. Powerless, of course. Guys, annotated. I think there's some highlighting in here too. This book was wild. This is one of the only fantasies that I've read that was so like good that I didn't even think it was fantasy. You know what I mean? Like I wasn't thinking when I was reading it. And I loved this book so much. I loved Peyton, and gosh, I love Kai. Like everybody loves Kai. So this book is about Peyton, who is an ordinary. This kind of reminds me of like it's like a more of a dystopian book, not even a fantasy necessarily, but it's like both. But it's about Peyton, who's an ordinary, and Kai, who is the enforcer. He's an elite. Ordinaries are banned. They're not supposed to be alive. They're supposed to be dead or kicked off to die, you know? But she's living. People don't know that she's an ordinary because she fakes being a psychic. So this book is about just her life and how she and Kai are enemies, and they become lovers, and then they're enemies again. Like, it's just a very good book, and I'm telling you, this book is a brick. It's around 500 pages. I couldn't put it down. Do not be scared. Read the book. You're gonna love it. I promise you're gonna love it. Okay, and then I read The Paradise Problem by Christina Lauren. I loved that book so much. It was a 5 star. I love the way that they write. Christina Lauren, it was just awesome. It was such a fun time, and the romance in there was so good. Literally peak romance. Definitely would recommend if you love rom-coms. It was awesome. And then I read A Thousand Splendid Suns. Okay guys, this one has trigger warning. It's set in Afghanistan, and it deals with like the problems of the day, like misogyny and abuse and just the way that the culture views women and sees them as like less than. Such a powerful book, so moving. It was really good. I really enjoyed this book. It was like a 5-star. And then I read, this is the last book, Summer by Karen Kingsbury. This book made me cry, like sob, because the end of the book is just so heartbreaking. So it's basically about a girl who's walking through grief. It's just really powerful, and it portrays grief really real. So if you are triggered again by that, by miscarriage and infertility, you probably don't want to read this book either. But it was really moving. It opened my eyes to see what people really feel like when they go through that and all the things they deal with. So thank you guys for listening to me yap about my 24 favorite books in 2024. I hope that you guys have a great rest of the day, and thank you guys for watching. See you soon.